Love itself means die Liebe. Die Liebe. The word date, when talking about love, is das Date. Das Date. However, when you are talking about a date on the calendar, then it's das Datum. Das Datum. So here you have to be a bit careful. To go on a date, you say in German, auf ein Date gehen. Auf ein Date gehen. In the German language, there isn't a specific word to say boyfriend or girlfriend. So if you want to describe someone as your boyfriend, for example, you say simply Freund, which also means a normal friend. Freund. If the relationship is more serious, you can say Partner. So Freund means both boyfriend and a friend. The same with the feminine word. Instead of girlfriend, you say Freundin, which also means simply a friend. Freundin, or again you can say Partnerin. Partnerin. A fiancé is Verlobte. Verlobte. Husband is Ehemann. Ehemann. And a wife is Ehefrau. Ehefrau. The word divorced in German means geschieden. Geschieden. If you are single, you can either say single, just like the English word, or ledig. Ledig. And if you want to say I am single, you use the verb sein. So the sentence is Ich bin ledig. The verb to hug means umarmen. Umarmen. And to kiss is küssen. Küssen. Love life in general is Liebesleben. Liebesleben. If you want to say that you get along well with someone, you say sich gut verstehen. Sich gut verstehen. So you change the verb verstehen, depending on the pronoun, as well as sich. To flirt is also flirten. Flirten. To get married is heiraten. Heiraten. To be married, just like the adjective, verheiratet sein. Verheiratet sein. So if you want to say I am married, you say ich bin verheiratet. Du bist verheiratet. And so on. Let's see how we can use some of those verbs. Starting with to marry. Ich heirate. Du heiratest. Sie es heiratet. Wir heiraten. Ihr heiratet. And sie heiraten. As you can see, the verb is very simple. And in the Vergangenheit, you say, ich habe geheiratet. Ich habe geheiratet. To be engaged, verloben sein. Verloben sein. And again, if you want to say I am engaged, you say ich bin verloben, and so on. Jobs. The word job in German could even be der Job, or die Arbeit. Die Arbeit. Die Arbeit literally means the work. A job interview is either das Vorstellungsgespräch, again, das Vorstellungsgespräch, or das Bewerbungsgespräch. Das Bewerbungsgespräch. Das Vorstellungsgespräch. Das Bewerbungsgespräch. An artist is Künstler. Künstler. And if you are talking about an artist who is a woman, for example, you say Künstlerin. So you add en to make this profession for a woman. Künstler, Künstlerin. A writer is either Autor or Autorin, or Schriftsteller, Schriftstellerin. Lawyer is Anwalt, Anwalt, and the feminine form is Anwältin. So you add en and you change a into a umlaut. Anwalt, Anwältin. A farmer is Bauer, Bauer or Bauerin. Bauerin. Engineer is Ingenieur. Ingenieur or Ingenieurin. The word designer stays the same. Designer, but you say Designerin for the feminine form. An electrician is Elektriker. Elektriker or Elektrikerin. Elektrikerin. An accountant is Buchhalter. Buchhalter or Buchhalterin. Buchhalterin. A chef is Koch. But just like lawyer, you also had to change another letter. For the feminine form, you say Köchin. IN plus O umlaut instead of O. Koch, Köchin. A carpenter is Tischler. Tischler or Tischlerin. A scientist or a researcher is either Wissenschaftler, Wissenschaftler or Forscher, Forscher. And again, for the feminine form, you add in. Wissenschaftlerin or Forscherin. A teacher is Lehrer. Lehrer or Lehrerin. Lehrerin. A waiter is Kellner. Kellner. And waitress is Kellnerin. Kellnerin. A flight attendant is Flugbegleiter. Flugbegleiter or Flugbegleiterin. A translator is Übersetzer. Übersetzer, which comes from the verb übersetzen, to translate. And the feminine form again is Übersetzerin. Übersetzerin. A college student is Student. Student or Studentin. Studentin. Manager is Manager or, for the feminine form, again, Managerin. A boss is Boss or Chef / Chefin. So here you have to be careful. The word chef in English means someone who cooks. In German it's Koch. But chef in German, the word chef in German means boss. Those are the words that could be called false friends. You think that they mean the same thing in the other language, but they actually don't. Employee is Mitarbeiter. Mitarbeiter. The feminine form is Mitarbeiterin. Mitarbeiterin. Employer is Arbeitgeber. Arbeitgeber. Or again, Arbeitgeberin. Arbeitgeberin. A CV is der Lebenslauf. Der Lebenslauf. To work is arbeiten. Arbeiten. And to hire is einstellen. Einstellen. And here, because the verb has two syllables, ein and stellen, when you use the verb, you have to put stellen first, and ein, the first syllable, is always the last word in the sentence. Ich arbeite. Du arbeitest. Sie/es arbeitet. Wir arbeiten. Ihr arbeitet. And sie arbeiten. In der Vergangenheit, you say, ich habe gearbeitet. Ich habe gearbeitet. So as you can see, the verb is completely normal. If you got the question, what's your job? They are going to say, was ist Ihr Beruf? And yes, Beruf also means job. Vergleichen or comparative. What does vergleichen mean? Well, it actually means when you are comparing two objects or two people together. And when you do so, you would need adjectives, right? So let's see how we can actually use those adjectives to compare two things together. Let's start with some basic sentences. The first one is, my brother is taller than me. So in English, you use the adjective tall and add er and then than to compare the brother with yourself. In German, you say, mein Bruder ist größer als ich. So the er part stays the same, and than would be als. And yes, als also means when I was a child, als ich ein Kind war. But here, als means than. Als ich, than me. And some adjectives, not all of them, but some, would require some kind of change. In the first sentence, for example, the adjective groß would be größer, which means you add the er, but you also change o into o umlaut. Just like the second sentence. Trousers are longer than shorts. er and then than. In German you say Hosen sind länger als Shorts. Länger comes from the adjective lang. You add er and you also change a into a umlaut. And then you write als. In the third sentence, however, I am less tall than my brother. So it's the opposite now. The first person is less than the second person. Here, you only have to add the word weniger, which means less. Ich bin weniger groß als mein Bruder. And of course, you can do it the opposite way when you say, for example, I am shorter than my brother. Then it goes just like the first two sentences. You can see this in the last sentence. Instead of saying shorts are less long than trousers, you say shorts are shorter than trousers. In German it would be Shorts sind kürzer als Hosen. From the adjective kurz, you say kürzer, and then you add als. I would recommend, personally, that you learn the adjectives we are going to discuss today. Those are the main adjectives. Some of them are different, some of them are not. So I would say, as a first step in this subject, learn those adjectives, and slowly with time, your adjectives are going to grow and you are going to be able to use them. The first adjective is good and better. For this you say gut und besser. Gut, besser. The opposite, bad, worse, is schlecht, and then simply adding er. Schlechter. Schlecht. Schlechter. As you know, the word groß in German could either mean big or tall. So you say groß and größer. Groß, größer. You add er and you change o into o umlaut. However, small or short in German means klein, kleiner. Klein, kleiner. When talking about age, for example, old, older, it's again just like groß. Alt would be älter. You add er and you change a into a umlaut. Alt, älter. Again with the opposite, young, younger, jung, jünger, jung, jünger. Fast, faster is schnell, schneller, schnell, schneller. Slow, slower is also normal. Langsam, langsamer, langsam, langsamer. This adjective is a bit complicated. High, higher is not that simple. For high, you say hoch, hoch. But for higher, you say höher, höher. So as you can see, almost the entire word is different. Hoch, höher. Again, hoch, höher. This one you already know. Short, shorter is kurz, kürzer. Kurz, kürzer. Again with cold, colder, kalt, kälter. Kalt, kälter. Hot, hotter is heiß and heißer. Heiß, heißer. Laut, louder is laut and lauter. Laut, lauter. Quiet, quieter. Ruhig, ruhiger. Ruhig, ruhiger. Nearer is nahe and näher. Nahe, näher. Try to practice the pronunciation again. Nahe, näher. Far and further is weit, weiter. Weit, weiter. Heavy, heavier is schwer, schwerer. Schwer, schwerer. The opposite, light, lighter, is leicht, leichter. Leicht, leichter. Cheap and cheaper is billig and billiger. billig and billiger. The opposite, expensive and more expensive, is teuer and teurer. Teuer and teurer. Superlative. Superlative is the last level for an adjective, which means, for example, the biggest or the smallest, the fastest, and so on. Let's start with some basic sentences, like, my brother is the tallest. In English, as you can see, you have to add the article, the, and then the adjective with est. Tallest. In German, this sentence would be, mein Bruder ist der Größte. So the article part is the same, both languages, and the adjective is also there, and you have to add ste usually. But because groß actually ends with an S, you don't have to write an extra S. Mein Bruder ist der Größte. And here, in the German sentence, the adjective, the tallest, is actually seen as a noun. And that's why you write it as a capital letter. He is the biggest or the tallest. Let's see the second sentence to understand better. The grandmother is the oldest. Again, the adjective plus est. In German, you say die Oma. Oma is actually some kind of shortcut to say Großmutter. Ist die Älteste. So you have die because Oma is feminine. And then the adjective alt would be Älteste. And it's written as a capital letter because you are using the superlative as a noun in this case. However, in the third sentence, I want the best strawberries. The best strawberries. The noun is strawberries and best is the adjective. And in German, you say, ich möchte die besten Erdbeeren. Here you write the adjective as an adjective and not as a noun, because the noun in this case is Erdbeeren, strawberries. And you say die because Erdbeeren, they are plural. In case you are still not sure you've got it all, don't worry, we are going to take this step by step. There are actually two ways to use superlative in German. The first way, just like in the last slide, is when you say der Größte, die Beste, and so on. And I mean by this the way where you add the article as well. The second way is shown in this slide. The English sentence, the risk is greatest in winter. This is still superlative. And in German, you say, das Risiko ist im Winter am größten. So you say am, and you end your adjective with sten. But again, because you have groß, which is already with an S, you only write den. Am größten. Let's see the second sentence. The dog likes best to sleep in the park. Der Hund schläft am liebsten im Park. Am liebsten, you use this adjective when you want to describe something that you desire the most or you like the most. The dog likes to sleep in the park the most. This method is used. It's not as popular as the first method, but it does exist. So I would recommend for you to learn the first one for now, but keep this one in mind. So when you hear it on the street, for example, you know what it actually means. But for now, we are going to focus on the first method. Let's start with some basic adjectives. Good, better, and the best is gut, besser, and the new one, the article plus beste. Gut, besser, article plus beste. The opposite is bad, worse, the worst. So you have schlecht, schlechter, and schlechteste. Schlecht, schlechter, schlechteste. The adjective groß is a bit different. You have to keep in mind that when you use this adjective, you have to change O into O umlaut. So it's groß, but größer and größte. Try to practice the pronunciation. Groß, größer, größte. And of course with the right article. Small is simple. Klein, kleiner, and kleinste. Klein, kleiner, kleinste. Here you don't have to add este. Sta should be enough. Kleinste. The adjective old is just like the adjective big, groß. Remember? And here, instead of changing O into O umlaut, you actually change A into A umlaut. So you say alt, älter, and älteste. And älteste. Alt, älter, älteste. Again, with the adjective young, you say jung, but jünger and jüngste. Jung, jünger, jüngste. And here you don't have to write the E in the middle. Jüngste. STE are enough. Jung, jünger, jüngste. And don't worry. With practice, you are going to learn them and start saying them without thinking, whether it's jünger or junger, whether you have to write umlaut or not. Fast is normal. You say schnell, schneller, and schnellste. Schnellste. Schnell, schneller, schnellste. Again with slow, langsam, langsamer, langsamste. Langsam, langsamer, langsamste. The adjective high is almost completely different. You say hoch, but you say höher, höher. And then back to höchste, höchste. Hoch, höher, höchste. There isn't actually a specific reason why some adjectives are written this way and the others are not. But I say it again, with practice, those adjectives are going to stuck in your mind and you are going to start using them without thinking too much about it. Again with short, you say kurz, kürzer, and kürzeste. Kurz, kürzer, and kürzeste. Again with cold, kalt, kälter, kälteste. Kalt, kälter, kälteste. Hot is normal. You say heiß, heißer, but you say heißeste. Heiß, heißer, heißeste. Laut, louder, the loudest, is laut, lauter, lauteste. Laut, lauter, lauteste. With quiet is ruhig, ruhiger, ruhigste. Ruhig, ruhiger, ruhigste. With near is nahe, näher, and nächste. Nächste means the next one. Nahe, näher, and nächste. The opposite, far, further, the furthest, weit, weiter, and weiteste. Weit, weiter, weiteste. Heavy is schwer, schwerer, and schwerste. Schwer, schwerer, and schwerste. Light is leicht, leichter, and leichteste. And by leicht I mean when something is not heavy, leicht, leichter, and leichteste. However, the noun light in English doesn't mean leicht in German, like the light of the sun. In German you say Licht, so be careful here. Cheap is billig, billiger, and billigste. Billig, billiger, billigste. The last adjective is expensive. You say teuer, but teurer, and then back to teuerste. Teuer, teurer, teuerste. One time with E, the second time without an E, and then back to an extra E. Music in German is die Musik. Die Musik. A microphone is das Mikrofon. Das Mikrofon. As you can see, most English words that are written with the C, like microphone or music, in case they stay the same in German, the C would be K. For example, music and Musik are exactly the same except for the last letter. The C would be a K. And again in microphone, the C is also written as a K. A sound is der Klang. Der Klang. A musical instrument is das Musikinstrument. Das Musikinstrument. A guitar is die Gitarre. Die Gitarre. A piano is das Klavier. Das Klavier. But bass is der Bass. Der Bass. Saxophone is das Saxophon. So this word stays almost exactly the same. As you can see, the E at the end does not exist in the German version. Das Saxophon. So the pronunciation is exactly the same. Drums are das Schlagzeug. Das Schlagzeug. Schlagzeug. A trumpet is die Trompete. Die Trompete. A violin is die Geige. Die Geige. Stage is die Bühne. Die Bühne. A theater is das Theater. Das Theater. So it's written just like the English word, but the pronunciation here is different. TH in German are still T and not the, just like English. Concert is das Konzert. Das Konzert. Orchestra is das Orchester. Das Orchester. A band is simply die Band. Die Band. A singer is either der Sänger, or die Sängerin. Die Sängerin. What does this mean? It means if you have to change a word or to make a profession for a woman or a girl, you simply add en at the end. And this applies to almost everything. Sänger, Sängerin. The main verb to sing is singen. Singen. Again here, as you can see, with the word dancer, you can either say der Tänzer, or die Tänzerin. Die Tänzerin. And you also have to pay attention. If the word is feminine, that means that the article should also change. It's always der Tänzer and it's always die Tänzerin. And the main verb is tanzen. To dance. Tanzen. To play an instrument is ein Instrument spielen. Ein Instrument spielen. As you know, spiele means to play. To perform is auftreten. Auftreten. Let's see how we can use the first verb we had, singen. Ich singe, du singst, sie, es singt, wir singen, ihr singt, and sie singen. Until now, the verb is really normal, there is nothing new to it. However, if you want to use the verb in the Vergangenheit, you say, ich habe gesungen. Ich habe gesungen. Let's continue with the verb tanzen. Ich tanze. However, du tanzt. So there is no need for an S. Du tanzt. Sie, es tanzt. The exact same thing. Tanzt. Wir tanzen. Again, ihr tanzt and sie tanzen. And the Vergangenheitsform is ich bin getanzt. Ich bin, because you move a lot when you dance, and getanzt. The last verb, auftreten, to perform, is a bit different. Auftreten, this means that this verb has two parts in it. And because of that, the first part, when you use the verb in a sentence, has to move to the last part of the sentence. So you say, ich trete auf. Ich trete auf. Du trittst auf. Sie, es tritt auf. Wir treten auf. Ihr tretet auf. And sie treten auf. For example, if you want to say, I perform today. So you say in German, ich trete heute auf. So auf would always be the last word in the sentence. And everything else would come between trete and auf. And in the Vergangenheit, you say, ich bin aufgetreten. So the verb perform uses the verb sein. Ich bin aufgetreten. And yes, again, if you say, I performed yesterday, for example, you say, ich bin gestern aufgetreten. Here, this means that the second verb, aufgetreten, stay at the last part of the sentence. Ich bin gestern aufgetreten. And this is always the case with verbs in the Vergangenheit. It doesn't matter whether the verb has two parts in it or one part. As long as you are speaking in the Vergangenheit, the second verb, or the main verb in this case, would go to the end of the sentence. Cinema. Cinema in German means das Kino. Das Kino. However, if you say I go to the cinema, you say ich gehe ins Kino. Ich gehe ins Kino. Ins means in das. It's some kind of shortcut in German. So you can either say ich gehe in das Kino, but most people say ich gehe ins Kino. I go to the cinema. Movie is der Film. Der Film. An actor or an actress are either Schauspieler or Schauspielerin. Schauspieler, Schauspielerin. The en at the end says that the person is actually a woman. The same thing goes with the word director. Regisseur is for the masculine form, Regisseur or Regisseurin. Regisseurin. A genre is das Genre. Das Genre. Comedy is die Komödie. Die Komödie. Drama is simply das Drama. You just have to make the word drama more German. Das Drama. So roll your R's. Romance is die Romanz. Die Romanz. An action movie is der Actionfilm. Der Actionfilm. The genre horror is der Horror. Horror, horror. You see how some words are the same in English and in German, but the pronunciation could be different. Horror, horror. A science fiction is die Science Fiction. You could translate the word to get like an 100% German word, but nobody says it. They all say science fiction. Cartoon is der Cartoon. Der Cartoon. A musical is das Musical. Das Musical. A fantasy is die Fantasie. Die Fantasie. Popcorn is der Popcorn. Der Popcorn. candy is die Süßigkeit. Die Süßigkeit. Süß means sweet, so it does make sense. Lieblings is the word that you say before an object to say that this object is your favorite thing. For example, Lieblingssport, your favorite sport. Lieblingsfarbe, your favorite color, and so on. And you don't have to add a space between the words Lieblings and the word you are choosing. They come together as one word. This is not the case in English. So here you have to pay attention. The verb to prefer something is bevorzugen. Bevorzugen. Let's see how we can use this verb, starting with I. Ich bevorzuge. Ich bevorzuge. Du bevorzugst. Du bevorzugst. Sie es bevorzugt. Sie es bevorzugt. Wir bevorzugen. Wir bevorzugen. Ihr bevorzugt. Ihr bevorzugt. Sie bevorzugen. Sie bevorzugen. And finally, the perfect form, the Vergangenheitsform, is ich habe bevorzugt. Ich habe bevorzugt. Easy and simple. The word holidays means Urlaube. Urlaube. Celebrations in general are die Feste. Die Feste. Let's start with Christmas, for example. Christmas is das Weihnachten. Das Weihnachten. And Santa Claus is der Weihnachtsmann. Der Weihnachtsmann, which means the Christmas man. Der Weihnachtsmann. Hanukkah is das Chanukka. Das Chanukka. New Year's is Silvester. Silvester. And speaking from a personal experience, if you have the chance to spend a New Year's Eve in a German or Austrian town do so. The atmosphere is simply magical. Let's continue with our lesson. Easter is Oster. Pretty simple and pretty similar. Oster. Ramadan is Ramadan. Ramadan. So you have to roll your R. The Independence Day is Tag der Unabhängigkeit. Tag der Unabhängigkeit. Abhängigkeit means dependence. Unabhängigkeit means independence. Traditions are Traditionen. Traditionen. Gift is das Geschenk. Das Geschenk. A side note, if you say the word Gift in German, it means poison. To open is öffnen. Öffnen. Let's see how we can use this verb. Starting with I. Ich öffne. Ich öffne. Du öffnest. Du öffnest. Er, sie and es öffnet. Öffnet. Wir öffnen. Wir öffnen. Ihr öffnet. Ihr öffnet. Just like the form in ACS. And finally, Sie öffnen. However, if you want to use the verb in the Vergangenheit, you say Ich habe geöffnet. Ich habe geöffnet. Geöffnet. To celebrate something is feiern. Feiern. If you want to say, I spend time with, like my family, my friends, and so on, you have to use the verb verbringen. Verbringen. So the whole sentence would be Zeit verbringen mit. Zeit verbringen mit. To spend time with. And pay attention. With this verb, you don't have to section the verb. Ich verbringe. Du verbringst. LCS verbringt. Which means you don't have to take ver and put it at the end of the sentence. They stay together. Some verbs, they need to be separated in a sentence, but not all verbs. With this one, you are safe here. Überraschen means to surprise. Überraschen. And again here you don't have to separate the verb. Über and raschen stay together always. As you can see, you say ich überrasche. Ich überrasche. Du überraschst. Du überraschst. Sie es überrascht. Sie es überrascht. Wir überraschen. Wir überraschen. Ihr überrascht. Ihr überrascht. Sie überraschen. Sie überraschen. As you can see, the verb is a pretty normal verb. And finally, for the Vergangenheit, you say, ich habe überrascht. Ich habe überrascht. Special occasions. Besondere Gelegenheiten. Besondere Gelegenheiten. In other words, we are going to continue our last lesson. The first word is birthday. Der Geburtstag. Der Geburtstag. Geburt means birth, and day, as you already know, means Tag. Do you see the S in the middle between Geburt and Tag? This S is usually used to separate as a connection tool between two words. It's pretty common in German, but it's not used all the time. However, in the word birthday, it's used and pronounced. Geburtstag. Try it again. Geburtstag. The question, when is your birthday, is wann ist dein Geburtstag? Wann ist dein Geburtstag? And as an answer you say, mein Geburtstag ist, and then you add the date. Anniversary, der Jahrestag. Der Jahrestag. Wedding is die Hochzeit, which literally means the upper time. Die Hochzeit. And as you can see, between the words hoch and Zeit, there isn't an S. So as you can see, the S is used, but not all the time. A bride is die Braut. Die Braut. And the groom is der Bräutigam. Der Bräutigam. Remember, when you have A umlaut and O together, they are pronounced Oi. Bräutigam. A suit is der Anzug. Der Anzug. And by this I don't only mean like suits that are worn in weddings, but also suits for jobs and all in all special occasions. But a wedding dress is das Hochzeitskleid. Das Hochzeitskleid. Hochzeit is wedding and Kleid is dress. And to connect those two words, you add the S. So it's Hochzeitskleid. And when you have such a word that contains two or more words, the article of the word depends on the last part of this word. In this case, you have Kleid. And as you know, Kleid is das. So, Hochzeitskleid is also das. A funeral is die Beerdigung. Die Beerdigung. A cake is der Kuchen. Der Kuchen. A birthday cake is der Geburtstagskuchen. Der Geburtstagskuchen. So you have birthday, Geburtstag, and Kuchen, cake, with the connection S, Geburtstagskuchen, and the whole word is der because you say der Kuchen. Der Kuchen, Therefore, der Geburtstagskuchen. And this is the reason why there are many German words that seem to be very long. It's because they like to take multiple words and combine them to create a new one. But if you go through it step by step, it's actually not that complicated. Der Geburtstagskuchen. Ballons are die Luftballons. Die Luftballons. And Luft means air. Candles are die Kerzen. Die Kerzen. Kerzen. Decorations, die Dekorationen. Die Dekorationen. Toast is der Toast. Der Toast. To invite somebody, you say einladen. Einladen. And as you already know, if you want to use a verb where the first part of it is ein, aus, auf, and so on, the first part is going to be the last word in your sentence. You know, ich lade ein, and so on. To have fun or to have a good time, in German you say Spaß haben. Spaß haben. And Spaß means fun. But when you want to use this verb in a sentence, you say, for example, ich habe Spaß. So Spaß would be the word that comes after haben. But the main verb is Spaß haben. That's the way they say it here. Again, let's see how you can use the verb einladen in a sentence. Let's start with I. Ich lade ein. Pretty simple. But you say du lädst ein. Du lädst ein. And sie es lädt ein. Sie es lädt ein. And then you go back to normal. Wir laden ein. Ihr ladet ein. And sie laden ein. However, in Vergangenheit, you say, ich habe eingeladen. Remember? In similar verbs, you add ge between ein and laden. Ich habe eingeladen. Ich habe eingeladen. Perfect. To get bored of something, you say, sich langweilen. Sich langweilen. And sich is going to change depending on the person you are talking about. If I'm getting bored or you are getting bored, and so on. Boring is langweilig as an adjective. Langweilig. Langweilig. Equality when it comes to adjectives. Gleichheit in Adjektiven. What does this mean? This means we are going to talk about sentences where you are comparing two things and you are putting them at the same level. You know, like, you are as good as my friend. Or your house is as big as mine, and so on. So use an adjective, but both objects are at the same level. Let's start with a simple sentence like, my brother is as tall as me. In English, you use as plus the adjective and then plus as again. However, in German you say, mein Bruder ist genauso groß wie ich. So instead of as plus adjective plus as, you say genauso plus the adjective plus wie. Genauso means exactly so. And wie means, in this case, like. So eventually it does make sense. Let's see the second sentence. My house is as big as yours. Mein Haus ist genauso groß wie deins. Again, instead of as plus adjective plus as, you say genauso plus the adjective plus wie. And in the first and in the second sentence, you use the adjective groß to say tall or big, because as you already know, in German, both words mean the exact same thing. And finally, the third sentence, pizza is as good as pasta. Pizza ist genauso gut wie Pasta. Easy and simple, right? So let's continue. Now we are going to go through sentences to see if we've got everything right. Let's start with a sentence like, German is as difficult as English. By the way, I don't agree. I think that German is much more difficult than English. But the sentence in German means, Deutsch ist genauso schwierig wie Englisch. Deutsch ist genauso schwierig, schwierig means difficult, wie English. The second sentence, a watch costs as much as a ring. Watch might be a new word for you, so I've written it down. Watch means Uhr. and Uhr means at the same time a clock, like 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and so on. Eine Uhr kostet genauso viel wie ein Ring. To cost is kosten. And as much as is genauso viel wie. A mobile phone is as useful as a computer. Ein Handy ist genauso nützlich wie ein Computer. The word nützlich could also be a new one for you, so write it down. A car is as fast as a train. Ein Auto ist genauso schnell wie ein Zug. You see how such a sentence is built? Genauso schnell, as fast as, and then you just add the words you want to compare. Wasser ist genauso wichtig wie Essen. Water is as necessary as food. Food and to eat in German both mean the exact same thing. To eat means essen, and food also means essen. The difference, however, is how you write the word. Because if you are writing the verb, then you write it with a small letter. But the word food is a noun, which means it's always written with a capital letter. Transport means Verkehrsmittel. Verkehrsmittel. So, let's start. Timetables is Zeitpläne. Zeit, which means time, and Pläne, Zeitpläne. However, the singular form is Zeitplan. Zeitplan. Airplane is das Flugzeug. Das Flugzeug. Again, das Flugzeug. Car is das Auto. Das Auto. The plural form is die Autos. Das Auto, die Autos. Bus is der Bus. Der Bus. Train is der Zug. Der Zug. By the way, the train system between Germany, Austria, and those countries, mainly in Europe, is amazing. So if you come for touristic reasons to Europe, try it. Bicycle is das Fahrrad. das Fahrrad. And yes, you have to write it with two R. Ship is das Schiff. Das Schiff. Cruise is die Kreuzfahrt. Die Kreuzfahrt. Subway is die U-Bahn. Die U-Bahn. To get on something, you say einsteigen. Einsteigen. Let's see how we can use this verb in a sentence. For ich, you say ich steige ein. So, as you can see, the verb steigen would change and ein would be the last word in the sentence. Du steigst ein. Du steigst ein. Sie es steigt ein. Sie es steigt ein. Wir steigen ein. Wir steigen ein. Ihr steigt ein. Ihr steigt ein. And sie steigen ein. Sie steigen ein. It's really simple, right? And the verb einsteigen in the Vergangenheit is ich bin eingestiegen. So the verb takes sein when it's being said in the Vergangenheit and gets in the middle between ein and stiegen. Ich bin eingestiegen. The exact same thing goes with aussteigen, to get off. Aussteigen. Einsteigen. Aussteigen. Let's see. Ich steige aus. Ich steige aus. Du steigst aus. Du steigst aus. Sie es steigt aus. Wir steigen aus. Wir steigen aus. Ihr steigt aus. Ihr steigt aus. And sie steigen aus. Sie steigen aus. And again, it's exactly the same thing when it comes to Vergangenheit. Ich bin ausgestiegen. So you only replace ein with aus. Ich bin ausgestiegen. To catch or to take something is nehmen. Nehmen. This verb is a bit different. You say ich nehme. Ich nehme. But du nimmst. Nimmst. So you replace I with an I. And again with SES. Nimmt. Nimmt. And then it comes back in the normal way. Wir nehmen. Wir nehmen. Ihr nehmt. Ihr nehmt. Sie nehmen. Sie nehmen. And ich habe genommen für die Vergangenheit. Ich habe genommen. To take takes the verb haben. To change something, you say ändern. Ändern. Try to pronounce it one more time. Ändern. Schule, Teil 1. Let's start with the teacher. You can either say Lehrer, Lehrer or Lehrerin. Lehrerin. The difference is simple. Lehrer is for a teacher who is a man, and Lehrerin is for a woman. This means that you can add the en at any profession to make it for a woman. Same thing goes here. For professor, you either say Professor, Professor or Professorin. Professorin. Exact thing goes with Schüler. Schüler or Schülerin. Schülerin. And be careful. For Schüler you say der Schüler, and for Schülerin you say die Schülerin. But this already makes sense, right? Desk is der Tisch. Der Tisch. Seat is der Stuhl. Der Stuhl. A pen is der Stift. Der Stift. Scissors are die Schere. Die Schere. A blackboard is die Tafel. Die Tafel. Homework has multiple words in German. But for now we are going to stick with Hausübung. Die Hausübung, which literally means the house exercise. Other words are like die Hausarbeit. Chalk is die Kreide. Die Kreide. A notebook is das Heft. Das Heft. A book, a school book, is das Buch. Das Buch. A classroom is die Klasse. Die Klasse. An exam also has multiple words in German. There is, of course, Test, and there's also die Prüfung. Die Prüfung. Subjects in plural is Fächer. Fächer with a umlaut. However, one subject is Fach. Fach. That's F-A-C-H. Fach. Fächer. Now let's go through some subjects. Maths is die Mathe. Die Mathe. The longer form is Mathematik. Mathe, Mathematik. Science is die Naturwissenschaft. Now this might be a long word, so let's go through it step by step. Die Naturwissenschaft. Again. Die Naturwissenschaft. And now at normal speed. Die Naturwissenschaft. That's it. History is die Geschichte. Die Geschichte. Geschichte means at the same time story. So it's both history and story. Geschichte. Geography is die Geographie. Die Geographie. Primary school is die Grundschule. Die Grundschule. Middle school is die Mittelschule. Die Mittelschule. Das Gymnasium. Das Gymnasium. To teach means unterrichten. Unterrichten with double R. To learn is lernen. Lernen. To take notes is notieren. Notieren. And to understand is verstehen. Verstehen. You don't actually pronounce the H, but you do in a way. Verstehen. Try to pronounce it yourself. Verstehen. Backpack. The German word for it is der Rucksack. Der Rucksack. You can also say Tasche if you want. Both words mean almost the same thing. Paper is das Blatt. Das Blatt. Sharpener is der Spitzer. Der Spitzer. A calculator is der Taschenrechner. Der Taschenrechner. Page is die Seite. Die Seite. And be careful how you write this word, because if you write it with an A and I instead of EI, it means string. Die Seite. Textbook or school book is das Schulbuch. Das Schulbuch. A dictionary is das Wörterbuch. Das Wörterbuch. A project is das Projekt. Das Projekt. Let's continue with some subjects. Chemistry is Chemie. Chemie. Here you don't have to pronounce the CH as H. Biology is Biologie. Biologie. Algebra is Algebra. Algebra. Physics is Physik. Physik. University is die Universität. Die Universität. You can also say die Uni, but the full word is Universität. To study in a university, for example, is studieren. Studieren. To work in pairs is in Paaren arbeiten. In Paaren arbeiten. And to work in groups, in Gruppen arbeiten. In Gruppen arbeiten. To ask is fragen. Fragen. And question is Frage. Frage. so you only delete the N at the end to make the verb a noun. However, let's see first how we can use this verb. It's a pretty simple verb. There's almost nothing new to add to it. But still, let's go with it. Ich frage. Du fragst. Sie, es fragt. Wir fragen. Ihr fragt. And sie fragen. To use the verb fragen in the past tense, you say ich habe gefragt. Ich habe gefragt. So the verb in the Vergangenheit takes the verb haben and not sein. To turn something in is abgeben. Abgeben. And you use this verb the same way you use the verb geben, but you add ab at the end of the sentence. Possessive adjectives. In German, they are die possessive Adjektive. Die possessive Adjektive. In case you are wondering what the possessive adjectives were, those are the words you use to describe, to say that something belongs to you. You know, my, your, her, his, and so on. But in German, they might be a bit more complicated than the English version, but all in all, they are pretty simple. So for ich, you either say mein or meine. Mein is used when the word after it is either masculine or neutral, with der or das. Remember? Meine, however, is used if the object is either feminine or plural. And this goes with everything. The same thing is with du. You either say dein or deine. For example, dein Buch, because it's das Buch, but you say deine Bücher, because die Bücher. Makes sense, right? With and s, you say sein or seine. Sein or seine. And for she, you say ihr or ihre. Ihre. Sein, seine, ihr, ihre. For wir, it's a bit more complicated. You say unser or unsere. unser for der and das, and unsere for the feminine word and the plural words. Ihr is a bit tricky because the masculine form is euer, and the feminine word doesn't only have an extra E, but is a bit different when it comes to writing. Eure. So you add the E at the end, but you delete the E in the middle. Euer, eure. So you have to be a bit careful here. And finally, sie is just like the feminine sie, either ihr or ihre. And be careful here, because if you are using sie as a form of respect, you have to write ihr or ihre as capital letters as well. But not for the sie, the singular sie. Only for the plural sie when you are using it as a form of respect. Let's try to read some sentences. My backpack is blue. Mein Rucksack ist blau. Easy and simple. Mein Rucksack ist blau. Your houses are on the beach. In this case, you could either say deine Häuser or ihre Häuser as a form of respect. You know, the C with the capital letter. Let's go with this one for this time. But both answers are considered correct. Ihre Häuser sind am Strand. Ihre Häuser, we add the E because we say ihre because Häuser is the plural form of house. And even if house is das Haus, as long as the word is written in the plural form, we use ihre. Sind am Strand. Our cats are kind. Unsere Katzen sind nett. Unsere Katzen sind nett. Die Katze, die Katzen. Unsere Katze, our cat. Unsere Katzen, our cats. Their problems are important. You already know that there comes from sie. But you usually don't have to write ihre in this case with a capital letter. But because it's the first word of the sentence, you do write it with a capital letter. Ihre Probleme sind wichtig. Ihre Probleme sind wichtig. If it's singular, you say, Ihr Problem ist wichtig. Don't forget to change the verb according to the name. as well. His favorite place is the countryside. Place could be translated into Ort. So you say, sein Lieblingsort ist die Landschaft. Sein Lieblingsort ist die Landschaft. Her pen is red. Ihr Stift ist rot. Ihr Stift ist rot. You still say ihr and not ihre because Stift itself is not feminine. Ihr Stift ist rot. Continents and oceans. In other words, we are going to talk about the names of the continents and the oceans. Let's start with those two words themselves. Continents is continente. Nente. You already know what and means. Und. And finally, oceans is oceane. Oceane. Kontinente und Ozeane. So let's start. Europe is Europa. 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 The way you write the word is exactly the same, but the pronunciation is different. North America is North America. North America. The same thing goes with South America, but instead of North, you say Süd. Süd America. And in this case, Süd America and North America are one word. Süd America. Africa is Africa. Africa. And be careful, you don't write Africa with a C. Africa in German is written with a K. Asia is Asien. Asien. I think this is the one that is completely different from the English version. Asia, Asien. Ocean in general is der Ozean. Der Ozean. Antarctica is die Antarktis. Die Antarktis. Atlantic Ocean would be der Atlantische Ozean. Der Atlantische Ozean. Here, as you can see, the word Atlantische is written as an adjective. The same thing goes with Pacific Ocean. Der Pazifische Ozean. Der Pazifische Ozean. Pazifische. Indian Ocean, der Indische Ozean. Der Indische Ozean. Mediterranean Sea is das Mittelmeer. Das Mittelmeer. Mittelmeer means the Middle Sea. Mittelmeer. Can you see that I'm not actually pronouncing the E in the middle? Mittel. To travel is reisen. Reisen. And to swim is schwimmen. Schwimmen. But you already know this one. And both verbs are completely normal. There is nothing new to add to them. Demonstrativ Pronomen. Demonstrativ Pronomen. Don't worry, they are actually easier than they sound. By this, I mean words like this, that, you know, the things you use to point at something, for example. In my opinion, the German language actually is easier than the English language when it comes to this topic. Both this and that are the same word. Whether the object you are talking about is near you or far away, you use either dieser, diese, or dieses for masculine, feminine, and neutral. You know, just like der, die, and das. So whether you are pointing at something near you or like far away, use the exact same thing. Dieser, diese, or dieses. For the plural, you say diese. Die, sie. And because it's in plural, it doesn't matter if the object itself is masculine or feminine or neutral. As long as you are talking about more than one object, you use diese. And it's also irrelevant whether those objects are near you or not. For these and those, you say diese. Pretty simple, right? However, if you want to say the one that is standing right there, for example, you say either derjenige, diejenige, or dasjenige. Again, it depends on the gender of the word. Derjenige for the masculine words, diejenige for the feminine words, and finally for the words that are neutral, you say dasjenige. And for the plural ones, you say diejenige, which means the ones that blah blah blah. To make sure you understand this topic, we are going to go through some sentences together. This is my pen. Das ist mein Stift. Here, you actually don't have to change anything. The sentence, in a way, does make sense when you only say das ist. However, when you want to say that car is mine, you say dieses Auto ist meins. Do you see the difference between those two sentences? In the first one, you are saying, this is my pen. Das ist mein Stift. But if you want to say, this pen is mine, you say, dieser Stift ist meins. That car is mine. Dieses Auto ist meins. But if you want to say that is my car, you say das ist mein Auto. It depends on whether the auto comes first or last in the sentence. Their daughter is that one with the red t-shirt. Ihre Tochter ist diejenige mit dem roten T-Shirt. Ihre Tochter ist diejenige mit dem roten T-Shirt. And as you know, we use diejenige because Tochter is a feminine word. Those are my friends. Diese sind meine Freunde. In plural, it doesn't matter whether the word Freunde comes first or last. Either way, you have to say diese. Diese sind meine Freunde or diese Freunde sind meine Freunde. It doesn't matter. These cups are a gift. Cups might be a new word for you. That's why I have written down. Cups means Tassen. Tassen. So, the translation of the sentence would be: Diese Tassen sind ein Geschenk. Diese Tassen sind ein Geschenk. Social media itself in German means soziales Netzwerk. Pretty similar, right? Soziales Netzwerk. A platform is die Plattform. Die Plattform. And as you can see in the German word, you have to add another T in the middle. An account is das Konto. Das Konto. And this does not only apply for like an Instagram account, but it also applies for a bank account, for example. In this case, you could say das Bankkonto, the bank account, and so on. Let's start with some apps. Now, some of you might think that Twitter in German means Twitter. So you actually pronounce the letters in the German way. But here you don't have to do this. Twitter is also Twitter in German. Even though the V in the middle is usually pronounced as V. Let's continue with Instagram. Instagram is Instagram. Instagram. Do you hear the difference between the two words? Instagram, Instagram. Facebook is pretty simple. In German, it's also Facebook. Facebook. Same thing goes with YouTube. YouTube in German means YouTube. YouTube. For those of you who use Reddit, Reddit in German is Reddit. Reddit. The only difference is that you actually have to roll your R. TikTok is also TikTok in German. TikTok. A photo is photo. Photo written with an F. The other word for photo is das Bild. Das Bild. Video is das Video. Das Video. Let's continue with a verb. To post something is posten. Posten. And it's a simple verb. There is actually nothing new to add when using the verb. So use the verb in the exact same way you are used to. Ich poste, du postest, and so on. A caption could be either caption, basically the exact same word, or if you want to sound more German, you can say die Beschriftung. Die Beschriftung. This is simply the exact translation of the word caption. The same thing goes with the word story. You could either say story or die Geschichte, which literally means the story. Die Geschichte. However, in this case, when talking about posting a story, people tend to use the word story. So I would recommend that you do the same. Again, with the word influencer. You could either say influencer or Beeinflusser. Beeinflusser for the masculine form. And for the feminine form, you say Beeinflusserin. Simply add en at the end. To subscribe, you say abonnieren. Abonnieren. This is the word that you are going to hear from German YouTubers all the time. Followers could be either followers or Verfolger. Verfolger. Verfolger is literally someone who follows you, whether it's online or on the street. To take a picture, you say ein Bild nehmen. Ein Bild nehmen. Or ein Foto nehmen. To record a video, you say aufnehmen. Aufnehmen. To say I like something, you could either say ich mag or sich gefallen. This verb is a more complicated verb, but if you feel confident enough to use it, please do so. Sich gefallen. And you can use it in the following way. You could either say es gefällt mir, I like it, es gefällt mir, and you can see that the word that tells us that I'm the one talking is actually the last word, mir, and it is translated into es, the first word. So in German it's actually, in this case, the opposite. Es gefällt mir. This is actually common in the European languages. I like them. Sie gefallen mir. Sie gefallen mir. As you can see, sie is the first word and mir is the last word. And plus the verb is being used according to the first word, sie, even though I'm the one talking. Sie gefallen mir. This verb again might be a bit complicated for now, so if you feel comfortable enough to use it, I would recommend for you to learn those two forms for now. We are going to talk about it soon again in the future. To comment on something, kommentieren. Kommentieren. It's also a pretty normal verb. There is nothing new to add to it. To follow is folgen. Folgen. To share is teilen. Teilen. This word could be used when talking about social media, like to share a post, for example, or to share a meal. To search is suchen. Suchen. As you can see, most of those verbs are the normal verbs. They are all regular, so don't worry about it. To use is verwenden. Verwenden. Love and Dating. Liebe Teil 2. So let's start with a deep word. Breakup means Trennung. Trennung. Or we can also say Schluss. Schluss. Schluss means closure or end. So in a way it does make sense. Both words are completely fine. You could use them both. To break up or to separate is either trennen, or Schluss machen. Schluss machen, which means to make closure. Again, it does make sense in German, but not necessarily in English. To use the verb trennen to break up, you could say Ich trenne. Du trennst. Sie, es trennt. Wir trennen. Ihr trennt. And sie trennen. It's a pretty normal verb. In the Vergangenheit, you say Ich habe getrennt. Ich habe getrennt. You could also use this verb to describe separating two things from each other. It shouldn't be only about relationships. And with Schluss machen, you already know how to use the verb machen. To divorce, scheiden. Scheiden. To use this verb, you say Ich scheide. Du scheidest. Sie, es scheidet. Wir scheiden. Ihr scheidet. And sie scheiden. In der Vergangenheit, you say Ich bin geschieden. So this verb comes with sein. Ich bin geschieden. The opposite of break up and divorce is to fall in love with someone. Sich verlieben in. Sich verlieben in. And then you add the name of the person you are falling in love with. You use this verb in the following way. Ich verliebe mich. Du verliebst dich. Sie, es verliebt sich. Wir verlieben uns. Ihr verliebt euch. Sie verlieben sich. It's actually not that difficult, right? And in the Vergangenheit, you say Ich habe mich verliebt. Ich habe mich verliebt. And if you have to add a name, you say Ich habe mich in, and then the name, and then verliebt. So verliebt comes at the end of the sentence. To kiss is küssen. Küssen. The pronunciation might be a bit tricky, so try to practice it again. Küssen. To hug is umarmen. Umarmen. To love is lieben. Lieben. And you can use this verb to say I love someone or I love something. It doesn't matter. I love you. Ich liebe dich. Ich liebe dich. To care about someone or something. Sich kümmern Sich kümmern Kümmern. Let's see how we can use this verb. Ich kümmere mich. Du kümmerst dich. Sie, es kümmert sich. Wir kümmern uns. Ihr kümmert euch. Und sie kümmern sich. In perfect you say ich habe mich gekümmert. Ich habe mich gekümmert. And if you have to add a name, you say ich habe mich bla bla gekümmert. Technology itself. The word in German means die Technologie. Die Technologie. Quite simple, right? And now that I think about it, actually most of those words are going to be similar to the English words. So let's start. Die Technologie. The first word is mobile. Now mobile in German means das Handy. Das Handy. And now you have to be careful because handy is written with an A, but it's actually pronounced like an E. So it's not handy, but handy. There is actually no specific reason, it's simply like that. PC is der PC. Der PC. Laptop is der Laptop. Der Laptop. internet is internet. The exact same word. However, screen is der Bildschirm. Der Bildschirm. And in case you don't remember, the word Bild alone means exactly photo. Bildschirm means screen. Battery is die Batterie. Die Batterie. Keyboard is die Tastatur. Die Tastatur. Now, one button on the keyboard, for example, is die Taste. Die Taste. So you have Tastatur and Taste. Camera is die Kamera. Die Kamera. You only have to roll the R. Settings are die Einstellungen. Let's repeat the word together. Die Einstellungen. The singular form would be without the en at the end. Einstellung is the singular form and Einstellungen is the plural form. App is simply die App. Die App. An SMS could be either SMS or Nachricht. Nachricht. To switch on, you say einschalten. Einschalten. You can see the similarity between the German and the English verb because the English verb also has two words. The same exact thing is in German. Einschalten. Switch on. To use the verb einschalten, you need those forms. Ich schalte ein. Du schaltest ein. Sie, es schaltet ein. Wir schalten ein. Ihr schaltet ein. And finally, Sie schalten ein. It's a pretty normal verb. You only have to be sure that ein comes at the end of the sentence. And finally, you have the verb in the Vergangenheitsform. Ich habe eingeschaltet. Ich habe eingeschaltet. Remember, when you have a verb that has two parts in it, for example, einschalten, the verb in the Vergangenheitsform would be the exact same thing, but with ge in the middle of it. Eingeschaltet. The exact same thing goes with switch off. Instead of einschalten, you say ausschalten. Ausschalten. And it goes exactly the same way. Ich schalte aus, du schaltest aus, and so on. The Vergangenheitsform is that's right. Ich habe ausgeschaltet. Excellent. To block someone or something, you say blockieren. Blockieren. So you simply take the English verb and make it sound more German. To save, speichern. Speichern. And this is not to save someone, but to save something on your computer, for example, to do backup, and so on. Speichern. In German, to save someone and to save something are completely different words.